today we're making minted pea soup, which is like a perfect, refreshing summer soup. Ingredients you're gonna need are pretty basic. The potato, the kind of potato that you have is important. So in this case, we're using like the plain table potato, like also called a russet potato. And these guys have the most starch in them. And so when we're making this soup, it's gonna be like it's a blended soup and it's gonna have kind of a creamy feel. And so the starch in the potatoes is important for making that kind of creamy feel to the soup. Other ingredients you may have laying around, we've just got onion, peas. Honestly, I use frozen peas most times of the year because that's a lot of shelling to do. Yeah, so even in the summer, like if I have a few fresh peas from the garden, then sometimes I'll use them to garnish, but there's a lot of nutrition and freshness in frozen vegetables these days, so I'm just using the frozen ones. And secret ingredient, I'm using miso in this soup. So like by no means is this a miso soup, but I'm using the miso as kind of like a flavor booster. It's like using vegetable stock, but cheating because I didn't use vegetable stock. And a couple of herb ingredients and other flavor ingredients. I've got some thyme, which goes with everything. It's just easy herb to start using. And then mint, which did come from my garden, but use whatever mint that you have around. This one happens to be spearmint, but apple mint or even chocolate mint, like all of it works. So have your fresh mint at hand, and then garlic is the other ingredient. So I'm gonna start, in this case, I do peel my potatoes because I want my soup base to be quite white in color. I don't want it to be kind of a murky color. I sometimes use vegetable peels because they're healthy, and if I'm using organic veggies, then why not? But in this case, I want a white soup so that when I blend the green peas into it, then it's like super duper bright green. The key to making this the most attractive soup is to not overcook your peas so you don't get that kind of dingy olive colored green. You get a vibrant green, and also to make sure that the soup base is white. Okay, I'll just take any of those like potato eyes out as well. So as I'm chopping these into about 1-inch cubes, just so that they cook evenly. Again, it's a blended soup, so you don't get bonus points for having like perfect knife skills, but I'm gonna go for some consistency here. So 1-inch cubes, about like that, about like the width of your thumb, right? So 1-inch cubes. As I was saying, this soup makes a really great starting point or base for a lot of different creamy soups. So if you're not using, you know, traditional roux thickened, which is like butter and flour thickening, potato makes a really great substitute because you get just the right consistency in your soup without having to add any roux. But the kind of potato is important in that case. So I would use this same recipe, and instead of doing peas and mint, I would do like roasted garlic and spinach. You could do that, make garlic like the main flavor, and then spinach the bright green thing. You could substitute almost any green vegetable. You could make this a creamy broccoli soup by substituting broccoli for the peas and omitting the mint. Really, the sky's the limit. So hopefully you can just use these recipes as like a jumping off point to use whatever you have around. So potatoes done. I chop up my onions. Okay, I'll chop up onions, garlic, get my herbs ready. Just in terms of the thyme, you just want to pull the leaves off of it, and then you've got the stem left over. That's all you need. You can put the stem next time you do make veggie stock. You can keep a little pile there for your veggie stock bits. And I'll see you over in the cooking area. Okay, we're ready to cook this soup. So we're gonna turn it on to something kind of medium. little bit of oil in the bottom of the pot. Let it gently heat up. Don't overheat your oil. And I'm gonna put my potatoes and onions in all at the same time. And you're just going to want to cook this for a few minutes until those onions are kind of becoming translucent and they smell lovely. As soon as onions and garlic start to cook, everything smells amazing. Then we'll wait for these potatoes to soften a little bit. Okay, my onions are starting to become a bit translucent, and I don't want these to brown too much. They've already started to brown a little bit, so just before that happens, I can add the water. And I'm using just enough water to just cover the vegetables. You can always add more, but you don't want a thin, creamy soup. You want to have something like nice and hearty and thick. So you can always add more, but it's tricky to take it away. So I'm going to cover this and let it cook until the potatoes are fully cooked. You could add salt now, actually. Season a couple good pinches of salt now, and then we'll taste it in a few minutes. This might take about 10 to 15 minutes or so. We'll check on it. And the potatoes are done cooking, took 15 minutes. Just check that they're fork tender, and then we'll go finish the soup. Finishing off this soup, while the soup is off the heat, then add your peas. So we are not overcooking those peas. I know it says on the package instructions to cook peas for 5 minutes, but I find that the ambient heat from this is enough to cook them. And then add your mint. I just picked whole leaves here. And add your miso. I'm adding a couple tablespoons of miso. And then you can taste and adjust at the end. But this couple of tablespoons is going to give me that kind of like deep flavor the vegetable stock would, but with a lot less fuss. And also it's another source of protein. So we've got like peas and we've got the miso. This is a really filling and awesome little lunch soup. Okay, so we're going to buzz it up. Amazing. I used to cook for a family, and the 3-year-old, this was his favorite soup, and he called it Ninja Turtle soup. You can see why. Isn't that pretty? That's so pretty. Okay, so tasting, the most important part. Wow, okay, this isn't just for TV, but it actually is seasoned properly. Usually there's some tasting and adjusting. There's a little more miso, there's a little more salt, but this is just like minty and just salty enough. Perfect. So there's your minted pea soup. Make it into any other kind of green soup by adding like a handful of spinach or a handful of arugula or some kale or whatever you've got. If you're adding kale, cook it for a couple minutes before blending it. Easy peasy, right?